What's up, everybody? Welcome to State of the Nation, the Athletics Raiders podcast. I'm Jimmy Durkin, and we are not in Alameda. We are up in Napa. Training camp is underway. We just watched our first training camp of the new Jon Gruden era. Vic Tafer here with me. Vic, your first impressions of watching these guys in no pads run around for a couple hours out there.
It wasn't the most exciting thing I've ever seen, but you can feel the energy. Obviously, Gruden brings a special thing to the mix, and the players are all on board and kind of fired up to get this thing going. So very kind of laid back, but definitely still peppy kind of for start to practice.
You know, one of the things we had noticed that had differed from the Del Rio to Gruden era in the spring was that they had gotten rid of the music. Well, there were times today where they did bring out the music. You'd hear them yelling, "Okay, turn on the music," and we had a DJ out there, and so it was more kind of like strategic, I guess. You know, there's times to kind of have that going and I guess feed off the energy, but then there's times that they want to quiet it down and maybe to go through their coaching points.
Yeah, I think Gruden did a good job of changing things up a little bit. He had he mentioned TV timeouts, the horn was blowing every now and then. Every 7-on-7 play was a third down play, so he tried to make the most, because now it's just you pretty much walk through in the afternoons and one big practice in the morning, so he's trying to get as much as he can into each practice.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about some of our observations. And observation number one that I think we were looking to see is Martavis Bryant. He was there. He was accounted for. Who knows if something could crop up down the road, but there's no new news to report there. He is good to go. He's good to practice, and he was out there. So that was good news for him. I mean, we'll see how things go from there, but the Raiders, at least right now, there's nothing to worry about there with him being available.
Yeah, I felt good for him because obviously there were reports that there's a pending suspension and he was getting killed in the Pittsburgh media for here he goes again. But whatever it is, he said he didn't miss any tests, that he didn't flunk any tests, and so I think whatever it is might have been minor, who knows, but he's a two-strike guy, so obviously the team is always going to be concerned. There's always going to be some worry about him and what's happening with him because that's just the way it is. The next strike could be a year or longer, so he's trying to turn things around. He says he has. The Raiders are definitely on his side, so I think it was good for them to see him here, and I think that report proved to be hasty at best, if not incorrect.
Yeah, I mean, not to compare him in what he's dealt with to Aldon Smith, but when you have a guy like that, you always fear that they could be suspended because, I mean, all it takes is, these guys can get randomly drug tests, 10 times a month or something? I mean, there's a high amount that these guys can get tested, and all it takes is a positive test, and if they've already kind of hit that level, stage 3, where they get test positive, and boom, that's another year, right?
Right. Talking to Bryant's camp all off season, there's definitely an uneasiness. Because you don't really know. The guy is conditionally reinstated, but there's always something. There's always, like you said, looming test, or could be something you didn't file right, the paperwork. So you're always on the edge. And his camp felt confident things were fine. They didn't know. Maybe the league was saying something that they didn't know about yet. So I'm sure they were relieved in the last few weeks nothing happened. So now that he's here, what can he bring to the offense? He's a big play guy. He can stretch the defense. Today did another great first day. He had some drops. We asked Gruden about him. Gruden didn't really praise him too much. He said, you know what, we'll wait and see. We have a bunch of guys. It's a very deep receiving corps. A bunch of guys here, and as of right now, we'll see what we can do. But it's not like today he came out and wowed everybody. So it's going to be a process, but ideally he's a guy who can take the top off of defense.
You talked about the deep receiving corps. Obviously, it's all based around Amari Cooper, and we see him come in looking very strong. I think Gruden said 223 pounds. He probably looks even a little bigger than that. Jordy Nelson, I know Derek Carr raving about him, saying anybody who's saying he doesn't have his top-end speed still, they're lying. He's got it. You got Bryant there as presumably the number 3, a guy like Ryan Switzer as a slot guy. You start wondering, okay, how does a guy like Seth Roberts, who you've reported could get traded if they can find a right deal, how does he find a way onto this roster? But really, to me, beyond that, it's like, how do the guys below him, and including him, how do those guys work their way onto the roster? Does a Johnny Holton find a spot again? And do some of these younger guys that maybe been around for a year or so, an Isaac Whitney, how can they make an impression? Well, day one, Isaac Whitney did make an impression.
He did make some nice catches down the field, and very big, fast guy. Obviously, has to do a better job of kind of getting to know the playbook a little bit, what Carr said, but just the growth from last year to this year, you see his development, can make some plays, has some confidence now about him. And I think, mentioned with Gruden, I think, I talked to his old former players, they all said, look, he just wants guys who can play. He doesn't care what your contract is, where you were picked. So if there's any coach you can come in and make an impression from day one, build on that every day, then you win a job. That's what he has to do. So today was a great day for Isaac Whitney. He made an impression, and tomorrow he has to come back and do it again. And then he might have it's going to be really, really hard. Like you mentioned, it's a very deep receiving core. Carson is the best since he's been here, but that's what you got to do. You got to make plays every day in practice. And today, Isaac Whitney did that, and so it's a good start for him.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a guy like Marcel Aitman, a draft pick that it does not look like he's got much of a path to a roster spot. He's a guy you probably hope to get him onto the practice squad and let him spend a little more time with the strength and conditioning crew to try to get his speed up, because he's big. I mean, you see him up close. He's a big guy. He needs to get a little faster, but
he's big, and everyone we all know he's slow. That was the report. He's big and slow. And today I watched him. He runs kind of funny. He may need like a running coach. I'm not sure what his strides are. I'm not an expert on running. Obviously, I'm out of shape, but his strides were not what I'm used to seeing out of an NFL receiver. Just something like a little hitch to his. I don't know. It was just can't describe it, but I'm not sure he's going to be in the mix.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be really difficult at that spot. I mean you've got to stack up days like Isaac Whitney had today. That's not anywhere near enough, and that might get you a question asked about you in a post practice press conference, and that's good. Get a little attention, but he's got to come up and have 5 more of those practices, 10 more of those practices, go into a preseason game and impress. It's gonna be fun to see who can. I mean, and we know whoever kind of wins that battle for those last roster spot or two, not going to have a huge role in this offense, but it always is fun to see who can be that guy. I mean, we saw Johnny Holton kind of develop a little bit of a role, and then last year, he was able to make some big plays for them occasionally, the occasional big play. But so I'm interested to see what happens at the bottom there.
I know it seems like right now that Seth is the odd man out, but that's a guy that could very easily also make a good impression with Jon Gruden. He's made some clutch catches in his career. Great blocker down the field in the running game. So he's a guy who could definitely make some plays in practice and during the preseason games. And Gruden's like, wait a minute, this guy actually has a role on this team. So even he has a pretty good shot to make an impression.
And one thing we know about Holton is we think he's a little bit one-dimensional on offense in terms of, they can run some reverses with him and they can run some deep passes with him. But he also is a very good special teams player. He's a very good tackler. And he can use that. He's not just a guy that just flies down the field, in the punt game, in the kickoff game. He can go down there and he can make a tackle. And that's important, too, because if you're a 5th, 6th receiver, you're not, like I said, you're not on the team because of your offensive role strictly. You have to be able to contribute other places.
Holton could be going against Dwayne Harris for that kind of role. It could be a special teams kind of role with receiving responsibilities, more your team's guy. And Dwayne Harris could be the kick returner. He's definitely showed some wiggle in the past. And I think supposedly he's going against Ryan Switzer, but I think Switzer has a good leg up on that slot job. So I think Dwayne Harris may have to really conquer the team's work and then show some catches here and there.
All right, well, we mentioned a guy in Martavis Bryant who is here. We've got to talk about the guy who is not here, and that's Khalil Mack.
He wasn't here?
He was not here. I did not see 52.
I had no idea.
We knew he wasn't going to be here. Everybody's known he wasn't going to be here. Now he's not here, and
I tweeted to him to send a selfie wherever he was, but
no selfie.
No response.
And I tweeted to him asking because Derek claimed that he dunked on him in the playing pool basketball.
Derek lies.
That's why I tweeted to Khalil. It's time for Khalil to step up and step up for himself. That he's not dunked on by Derek Carr. But we're not going to see him, hear about him for a while.
Couple weeks, 2-3 weeks.
You talked about the other day the big date. August 7th is not an important date for Khalil Mack, but it is for Aaron Donald, and so that's what makes that date significant, is that if that's kind of the date by which Aaron Donald probably wants to get signed, then once he's signed, you can go ahead and probably figure that Khalil should be shortly after.
Since we're here in Napa, let's remember last year was the first holdout since Jamarcus Russell, Donald Penn, and Donald got some more money. It actually paid off for him. He got more money than they wanted to give him initially, so that right there is, hey, I should not, if I don't come, I might get some more money.
And I think that was one of the kind of areas of concern, I know, from the fan base. And a lot of people, what they didn't like about Donald holding out is, does that set a precedent? And here we are, year 2 with a holdout. But, I think if I don't think the Donald holdout has anything to do with Khalil Mack.
I'm just saying that, I'm just being kind of funny, but obviously it works. I'm just saying that I think, and again, Khalil Mack's in immaculate shape. I'm sure 1% body fat. He's always just, so there's no concern that he'll come in here and not be ready to play. He'll jump right in. Hey, go get the quarterback. There's more wrinkles in that, but primarily that's his job, is get the quarterback, and if they get the ball running back, go kill him, and he'll do that also. So talking on the top, I think the top defensive player in the league, maybe top 2 or 3 if you want to argue with me, but he'll be fine. So I just think let's get worried about him in a couple of weeks.
Where I'll be worried about a precedent is if come next year you got Amari Cooper holding out, because I mean to me that Khalil Mack should be paid.
Right.
Like 100%, there's no debate about it. He's the most important player on your defense. He has been spectacular from the moment he walked into this league.
Right.
Whereas if a guy like Cooper, even if he has a big year this year, if he were in a position next year where he's like holding out, I mean, he's a guy who we could say through 3 years he's had his ups, but last year was a big down, and even in his first 2 years where there was a lot of ups, there were downs as well. So if you get to that situation where you've got, and I'm not starting any kind of, I don't think Amari Cooper is a guy that they should have to worry about.
Breaking news.
Worry about holding out. But if we start getting to that point where it's like a holdout every year, then you start, okay, they set a precedent, but I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, it's all about leverage. I mean, Penn had leverage last year because nobody wanted to see Marshall Newhouse at left tackle. Khalil's got leverage this year because he's the top guy in the league, and Jon Gruden wants to have his top guy in the league on defense. At some point, I still think he'll go to Mark Davis and say, hey, man, let's get it done. I'm tired of this. So I love Tanker Dean, but he can't be my starting defensive end.
Yeah, I mean, in NFL players, you don't hold on to leverage very long. I mean, he's going into the 5th year of his career. The way these work, he's going to get this big contract, and then does he have another big contract left in him? Who knows? I mean, it all depends on how these next few years go. But this might be his one big contract. Yeah. And we had the column from Marcus Thompson here on Friday morning saying 4 years, $80 million, make it all guaranteed, set a precedent with giving him an all guaranteed deal. I mean.
Marcus called me last night. He was very proud of that. I'm like, okay, that sounds good. Let's just do it, man. Something different. All guaranteed. I'm like, all right, I guess. But, I mean, I'm sure Khalil likes it. But, yeah, I think
and maybe it saves them a couple million per year. Maybe instead of giving them 21 per year, you give them 20 per year, but you make it all guaranteed. I don't know.
I think Derek got, $70 million guaranteed. So I'm sure Mack will be somewhere in that ballpark, 70 to 80. I just think, it's not ideal when you're building a roster to have 2 guys who are going to get paid $100 million. But in this case, they're the foundations of your team. Any chance you have in the Super Bowl goes with those 2 guys. So let's get it done and let's see what happens.
I thought it was funny. We talked to Derek Johnson today, and he was asked about Khalil Mack. And obviously, he's never been a teammate, really, of Khalil Mack. He is on the same team, but they've not been together. And, he says he's not talked to him, and which is kind of what you expect. I mean, they haven't had a chance to develop a relationship other than playing against each other. And Derek's like, you kind of got the coach speak a little bit going where, I'm not going to talk about guys that aren't here. And he didn't even refer to him by name. He's like, when the special guy shows up, then we'll be good. But that was kind of funny.
I bet Gruden loves that. Gruden's like, yeah, that's how we do it. That's how the veterans take care of business around here.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he loved that. But let's talk about in Khalil Mack's absence. You mentioned Tank Carradine. He got some work there. But we all know that without Khalil Mack, if they were to have to play again without Khalil Mack, their defense really becomes revolved around Bruce Irvin. And what can this guy do now that he is fully committed as a defensive end? And his day 1 of practice was really good. Although, for all this talk about he's not going to be dropping back, he had a pick 6 today.
He did. And, again, his primary job will be rushing the passer. Yeah. But with Gunther, guys will be dropping back once. It's all about confusion, different stunts, different looks. So there will be plays where Bruce jumps back. And today he jumped back right in front of Griff Whalen, picked it off and ran it back. It was E.J. Manuel's pass. But he also knocked out a ball from Marshawn Lynch for a fumble.
Yeah, a couple plays later, Marshawn had gotten behind him, and he, popped it out with a nice punch from behind.
I think Eric Harris recovered, and I think Marshawn kind of jumped on top of him. Then Bruce got on him and started punching Marshawn, and in a playful manner. Apparently, I didn't say that on Twitter. People, oh my God, they were fighting. No, it was a playful punching. It was just all in good fun. But it was a very nice first day for Bruce Irvin.
He also he had the crotch grab touchdown celebration as he did the Marshawn backwards into the end zone.
He's having a ball. He's in the spot he wants to be in. He wants to rush the quarterback. You've talked to him over the years. The 10 sacks is
huge for him. He tweets about it. He talks to us about it. Anytime you talk to him about it.
What's his career high? 8.5?
8, eight somewhere.
Eight and a half. So that's his goal. I think it should happen. With Gunther's defense, again, I'm a big Gunther guy. I think he's probably one of the biggest additions to this team. I think that he'll get guys in the right spot, and Bruce should have a good year.
Yeah, we saw at the end of last year he was really good. What did he have, 5 sacks in 5 games, something like that. He went on a big run at the end of last year.
It was really weird. Right after they
got rid of his guy.
Yeah, after they got rid of his guy, Kenny Norton, he started balling out. It was kind of bizarre. But yeah, so he's definitely in the right place, right frame of mind. So he should have a good year.
All right, we want to talk about some changes in this training camp, and we've talked about this before, where isn't it beautiful? A guy is on the PUP list. We're able to ask Jon Gruden. It tells us the injury. P.J. Hall, we know he was kind of the one. It was Vanderdoes, Donald Penn, and P.J. Hall were the 3 guys put on the PUP list. We know that obviously Penn's coming back from the Liz Frank injury. We know what happened with Eddie Vanderdoes with the torn ACL. Hall was the surprise guy that we didn't know was injured. What is it, a strained pec, I think?
Strained pec, I think it was a mini camp. I don't think it's that serious. I think they think he'll be back pretty soon. And Gruden also mentioned that Penn should be close to returning. So I think that'll be good for them, because obviously I'm not sure Colton Miller is ready to be the guy.
Yeah, the beauty of what we know, that when a guy shows up on the PUP list, is that means that the injury occurred during team activities. So we know, if you get a little more concerned with some of these guys if they show up on the NFI list, the non-football injury list, because that means it happened probably during workouts in between, and then maybe it just happened this week, maybe it's something more serious. So if it's fairly minor and it happened 6 weeks ago, that's a pretty good sign. They're
pretty healthy. I mean, Gruden mentioned it today, how he loves it when veteran guys come in healthy and in shape and ready to go. And they have 42 new players this year, including the rookies and undrafted guys, and only 3 guys that are hurt. That's pretty good to start off camp.
Yep. All right, well, we want to talk a little bit about Colton Miller. He is obviously getting the first-team reps at left tackle without Donald Penn. And I think that's a good thing that he's going in the start of camp, that he's going to get those first-team reps, because he needs reps. He needs reps more than Donald Penn does right now, and Penn does need reps. We know he missed so much of training camp last year, and it kind of set him back. But it's nice that Colton is going to get that work early on with the first group, because if something happens, and if Penn doesn't come back, if he struggles to come back from that injury and they have to go with Colton, it's good that he's early on getting time with that first team.
Yeah, he better be. He's going to be a left tackle at some point, if not this year, then next year. So you definitely want him to get ready as soon as he can. And it's a good matchup for him, because Bruce Irvin definitely loves going against the first-round pick. He definitely loves talking a lot of trash, getting in his face, kind of showing different tricks of the trade. So I think it's a really good test for Colton to go against Bruce every day.
All right, we are going to head over and get a couple quick questions from our State of the Nation mail. Now that we're back with the regular episodes, you guys can always send us your questions using that hashtag SOTNmail. And we've got a few questions coming in from Chucky is back. He sent 3 in a row. So I think a couple of them we already really hit. How far apart are Mack and the Raiders? They're...
I don't have a number for you. Somebody asked me last night about the money difference in both Mack and his agent Joe Siegel and Reggie McKenzie are pretty tight-lipped. I've talked to all parties involved, but no one's given me any kind of range. But obviously they're not close enough. I think, like we mentioned before, Aaron Donald, those guys are going to be definitely close. Who's going to set the market at defensive end or defensive line? Sorry, I think we're definitely talking at least $70, $80 million guaranteed, somewhere in that range. And the Raiders made an offer in the spring. It wasn't good enough, not really close. I'm sure the offer's gone up, and we'll see what Khalil does when they get more serious.
All right, another quick question from Chucky is back. How different is a Gruden practice versus a Del Rio practice? Talked about the music a little bit. It's training. It's day one. We haven't got to hitting yet. That'll tell us a little bit more. Yeah. But I
noticed it more in OTAs. The OTAs was more like moving parts, kind of a frenetic energy. Today it was kind of weird because a lot of conditioning drills, special teams drills. It was kind of like a kind of introduction to the camp. It wasn't really like a full scale, like let's go get it. I feel like on Sunday when the first day of pads, we'll have a better idea. But I think you will see more of a just kind of moving parts and different packages, just kind of running in, guys running on and off the field, and I think that'll be kind of cool to watch.
All right, last question from Chucky is back. Will we make record predictions? Not today, but maybe down the road. I think not today.
Yeah, I usually wait till
end
of camp, maybe third, fourth game. So I'm in no rush. I think we're ballpark. I think we're talking 500.
That's the Vegas over under is right at 8. Yeah. I wouldn't bet that. I don't think it's hard to say one way or the other where they're going to go.
A lot depends if Donald Penn can come back and be closer to was last year, and then the running game. How is Doug Martin going? Is he going to be the guy Gruden swears he is, or is he going to be just the guy he was last 2 years? Marshawn looks like he's in good shape. Marshawn looks like he came ready to go, which is probably a little different than last year. Last year, I didn't think he was in the best of shape coming out here in Napa. So if Doug Martin can be that 1-2 punch guy with Marshawn, they might be in good shape.
And if their defense improves as much as we think Paul Guenther will improve them, I mean, that to me it really, there's some question mark of how much Gruden is he gonna just resurrect this offense and make them dynamite. But to me, it still comes down to their defense. I mean, I feel like the offense is going to be better than league average, at least league average. If their defense can be a league average and their offense can be even just slightly above average, better than they were last year, closer to what they were in 2016, this team can certainly compete for a playoff spot. But if their defense can't get to at least league average, they're in trouble.
Right, Guenther has to get the most out of these guys. The linebackers are not the sexiest names. Derek Johnson's 34 years old. Tahir Whitehead was the guy in the Lions who wasn't really a dominant player, but was a guy. And Emmanuel Lemire. So there's guys who Lemire's got a pass with Guenther. So these guys aren't like, wow, that's a really good linebacking core. But ideally, Guenther can work his magic, get them in the right place, get them to know what to expect, and kind of the moving parts will surprise offenses. And so I think if he can do that, then they have a shot.
All right, that does. You talked about Emmanuel Lemire. That leads into one question from Mike Gorelli. How big of a role do you see him having?
I think he's starting. I can't imagine at this point who else will start at the outside linebacker spot, right? So I think Whitehead's at one spot, Johnson's in the middle, and I think Lemire's the guy. And I think
that's when they're in that base defense with three linebackers, which is not. I mean, 50% of the time, probably even less.
If they go nickel, you're talking about extra safety and maybe so. But I think he'll be the starter in base. I can't see it, and I think he's really excited about it. He's been kind of the extra guy all these years, but Guenther's his guy, and he knows that's what Guenther brought him here because he knows defense front one and backwards. He'll have the younger guys in the right place. I think he obviously realizes this is his chance to shine. This is his chance to be a starting linebacker in the NFL.
All right, question from Alex Bocanegra. How's the Conley and Coop battle going? How well is Carr running Gruden's offense? Who's the other safety, and how are the other corners doing? Too early to really judge Conley versus Coop. I mean, get these guys in pads where they can. They get in trouble in OTAs if there's contact. So
I didn't really notice either Conley or Cooper today individually, so I can't really say.
And Carr running Gruden's offense. I mean, that's going to take more time to. It's practice. They're not until you see them going up against an opposing defense and. Really, I mean, even in the preseason, it's going to be hard to judge. But
the Carr was fine. Carr hit Jordan Nelson a couple times today. Obviously, I think the backups didn't look good today. Both Cook and Emmanuel both struggled. I think that's going to be a question mark going forward. The Carr looked fine. The defense will be ahead for a while in terms of these things. But like you said, it's too early to make any kind of big sweeping comparisons or judgments.
Yeah, and it was a good day for the defense. I was impressed with what they were at out there. And I mean, that like I mentioned, that's to me is the big key. Is how good did this defense look? And I like them today.
Yeah, but I'm going to hold out for a while because
one day.
I thought both Cook and EJ were throwing 5 years late. Like every ball came out way late. So if you're a defense and you know where the ball's going before he throws it, that's a pretty good aid.
Yeah. All right, Charles Lee Rader, it says, will you guys be showing up to Catalina's Bar and Grill in Phoenix for the Cardinals game? That's all he wants to know.
Catalina's Bar and Grill? I'm not sure I've been there.
And in Phoenix, I don't know. I usually...
that's a hookup. I'm in, though. Hook it up. I'll be there.
We usually end up just kind of roaming around.
That big, was that name for that mall by the stadium?
Right across from the stadium.
There's a yard house there?
Yeah, I like staying at that Renaissance and being right across the street from the stadium.
I don't get out much. I walk from the hotel to the bar, then to the stadium, then back to the hotel.
Yeah, if it's too hot like it is when we had to go there the last couple of years in preseason, take an Uber. That's it's a little too.
It was hot.
Yeah, it was. When we go there in August, but this year we'll be going in November. November. So that should be pleasant.
Should be nice.
We can actually walk to the game. Nice. All right. A couple other questions. Let's see. Matt Schneidman wants to know what's your sandwich order.
I just had my sandwich. It was
it's delicious.
I'm a mortadella and provolone guy from the Genova Deli here in Napa. One of the best sandwiches around. There used to be one in Oakland. Got replaced by a Noah's, heaven forbid, so that's gone. But
there's not enough bagel places around,
especially mediocre bagel places. Sorry, Noah's, but I just had my first Nova sandwich. So camp has been a success.
Yep. Today, the beauty of day one of camp is that I was able to sneak out for like 15 minutes during kind of a lull during practice.
You missed that drill where the guys run down the field and put their hands up like they're blocking the kick somehow, and they run back and forth.
I missed that. Drill, but I got I like the Italian combo on Dutch Crunch with a little pepper jack. That was my order, and we hooked up Will Kiss, Raiders PR guy. We got him a sandwich. So
we're putting it out there.
Yeah,
we bought Will's sandwich.
I mean, this guy, how long has he been coming up to training camp here? He's never been there. That's ridiculous.
That's a little suspect, yeah.
That's ridiculous. I mean, okay, we'll give a little shout out to Will. That tells you how hard these guys are working here. That can't even get out and get a sandwich.
There you go.
All right, well, let's see. One other thing we wanted to hit up before we go is it's kind of a tradition. We like to pick a sleeper here at training camp, and usually we wait a little longer, and we probably do, before we make maybe a more official pick. If we like to try to find that undrafted free agent we think is going to make the team. I don't know that any undrafted free agent is making this team. Just the way
there's 9 of them, right? There's nine guys.
Yeah, I mean they didn't sign many of them, and when you look at all the veterans they brought in, I mean it's going to be hard if you're an undrafted free agent to really be able to make an impression. So we're kind of stretching the rules, and we're not calling it. It doesn't have to be an undrafted guy, but an under the radar guy that you think is going to have a good chance to make this roster that you're picking on day one after watching a few OTAs and minicamp and 1 day of training camp practice. Let's go ahead and we'll give ourselves the right to maybe change, amend, pick another guy later. But day one, who's your guy?
I'm gonna go traditional with the undrafted rookie.
All right.
And years ago, I picked Seth Roberts. I should have retired after that pick. That was my best pick ever.
I took Jalen Richard.
Oh, that's pretty good.
That was a good one.
I'm going with the running back. I'm going with Chris Warren the third.
Okay.
Just because he gives him a different look. He's a big, huge guy. His dad obviously has the bloodlines. I'm not sure that Jalen Richard or DeAndre Washington both make this team.
Yeah.
So it might be a shot for him. There'll be a fullback in there, but he's got a small shot. It's not impossible for him to make the squad if he shows him he can be a short goal line guy and maybe do some fullback type things.
Yeah, I mean they're going to have Keith Smith out there at fullback, which I know I tweeted out a little video and somebody was asking if he was wearing pads. I mean he's a guy that, especially from his college days, now that he's playing fullback, he's really bulked up. He's looking good out there, and it'll be fun to see what he can do. He's not a guy that is going to have the ball in his hands a lot. He's not a guy that is kind of used to being an offensive guy, because he actually, even in high school, I don't know that he played much offense, because he played with a guy in Adam Muema who ended up being a star running back at San Diego State. Was invited to the combine and kind of had a little weird experience at the combine where he left and spent the next few days in the Indianapolis airport, but we won't get into all that. But
picture the look on Gruden's face the first time that Keith is the lead blocker, Marchand's coming behind, they lay out 2 or 3 guys. Gruden's going to lose his mind.
He's going to love it. He's going to love it. All right, well, I'm going to make my pick, and I am going with the stretched rules, and I'm it's the wild card. This guy had a nice interception today. I'm taking Shaquille Richardson. They need some DBs that can show that they can make some plays. We know how much trouble they had intercepting the ball last year with like 5 all year. So Shaq Richardson had an interception today. The young guy, a little under the radar. I'll take him.
Hey, man, it's a building block. Him and Isaac Whitney. Every day, make a play, and who knows what can happen.
Yep. All right, well, I think that will wrap up our first training camp edition of the State of the Nation podcast. Good up here. I like it. I love coming up here to Napa. I mean, it's a great setting. We talked about it on the show Monday that it's hard to beat it up here. I mean, these guys have it good.
It is nice. This is right here. It's a good spot with the Napa Marriott lobby.
Kind of quiet. Yeah, there wasn't as many fans out there.
Today wasn't really a fan day. It might have been a family or friends day. Maybe it was a Raider day. But I think tomorrow the fans will come out to the stadium and
like 6,000 people out there.
Yeah, this bar will be packed tomorrow.
All right. Well, cool. Well, we'll be coming at you. We're not going to have like an official day, I think, that we're going to always podcast, but we'll be roughly every 5 or so days we'll be up here podcasting. We'll get some guests on, and should be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
We'll try and get Derek Carr right next to us.
We're going to try. We're going to try. We won't overcommit to anything.
We'll put some pressure on him.
We gave Will Smith, we gave Will Kiss a shout-out, so now it's...
Hey, man, we got you a sandwich because Derek Carr.
I mean...
And fans can reach out to Derek Carr on Twitter, a little pressure. We're going to put the full court press on Derek, get him on this thing next week.
I like it. All right. Well, that'll wrap up this show, and head over to The Athletic and check out all of our work. Thanks.
All right, guys. Thanks.